5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Says we are live. Good
Okay.
evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you may be watching us from. I am Jones Harwell. This is Journeys with Jones Harwell, and I am honored to have my guest this evening, Lisa Daughtrey. So we share our first name together. So you got so I'm going by Jones, and then I'm going to say Lisa. Welcome, Lisa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, when I was thinking of coming out with this platform, and we've talked about it sometime. You've known me for a little while now. And I finally decided to jump in with both feet. Last year, I kept saying, I've got to have this one guest. I'm going to reach out to her. I'm going to reach out to her and have her on the show. And your causes is one of the reasons why I want to have you. It's very relevant with what's going on today, what's been going on the last year, but it's a topic as a community that we do not talk about. And I know that you have been heavily involved in several of your endeavors for over 10 years now.
Right.
So give a little background as to what you do and what your passion is.
Okay. And sorry, I'm busy trying to adjust my phone so everybody can see me. So let's, I guess, go back. My work consists of, as far as being a mental health advocate, as well as philanthropy work. Mental health started when I lost my son. It's 8 years, going on 9 years this year. So he basically died by suicide. And he was one of those individuals who was a strong friend. So he basically looked out for everyone else. And it's like he took on, I believe, like my son was an empath, and I'm as well, but he didn't know how to deal with his own coping skills. He wasn't yet learn how to have coping skills. And that's to balance not only himself, but also how he can balance as far as how he feels about his friends and what they're going through. And so even though he had, dealing with some things as far as personal for him, he also took on those emotions, those feelings as far as what his friends were going through. So when that happened, I immediately jumped into with the school, because what happened was during his vigil, I had a lot of his friends just was contacting me on Facebook, and they were just going through so much. It was painful for them. I mean, they lost a person that was like a big brother for them. So what I said to them was, I will be out there, and whoever needs a hug, I will be giving free hugs, And when I tell you there was a line, because we had the visual scheduled to be inside the school, the auditorium, and what happened was it was such a big turnout, they moved it outside. And so the visual started a little before sunset, and we did like this huge circle. It had music. We were basically celebrating him, but it was the part that was so astonishing and at the same time shocking for me was the line of kids who wanted a hug. And when I tell you, each child that I hug, and we were hugging until it was almost black. It wasn't a lot of street lights out on the school campus. And majority each child had something to say about him, something that he did for them, or something that they were going through. And I was like, how can a child who don't even know me trust what they said to me, in full honesty of what they were going through? And I get it. I was the buffer. I was the medium person. So it's like, if he was a person who was their confidant, now I was sort of like that olive branch tree. And so I had said, you know what, I've got to discuss this with the principal because, you know, these kids are hurting, not just hurting because of him, but they're hurting with their own, you know, dealing with their own issues. And so the principal was very, as far as open arms with the whole idea, as far as us doing some type of program. And we created a pilot where first it was just target for the 11th and 12th graders. And then that was after the first year. After the first year, it was such a huge success because when I'm telling you, with me being a testimony and then us having open dialogue with the kids, we had kids that were coming, you know, going to the counselors. We had kids that were right after we had this, you know, had the speech and discussion dialogue. They were like in line, just ready to have more conversation. So the next year we extended the olive branch for 9th to 12th. And then we added the parents and as well as the teachers, because the teachers go through depression as well. I mean,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
you know, you
Yes.
won't even get that started.
Yeah. And
But
and especially a lot of times, and I commend you for the great work that you've been doing. I know that you've partnered up with several groups, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mhm.
But as a parent, myself, you always have to try to find. Uh-oh, what did I do
Mhm.
here?
I see you.
Okay, I don't see you.
Oh.
It's like it shifted. So let me. Okay, now I see you.
Mhm.
Maybe I don't know what's going on
Yeah.
this desktop, but we'll figure it
Mhm.
out. But as parents, a lot of times we think we know our child and we
Mhm.
think we know what signs to look for,
Mhm.
but a lot of times we don't. And I'm glad that there's a platform that you have and an avenue that you have that can reach kids that don't feel comfortable enough to
Well,
even talk to their parents a lot of
can I
times.
tell you this?
Yes.
Prior to when what happened to my son, he wanted to talk about it, but that's what made me move forward the way I did is because it wasn't that he couldn't talk to me about it. He could. We talked about everything. But the thing is, society has built this facade that only weak people, you know, thinking about taking their lives, you know, only people who have issues, and it's not that. Depression there's so many levels to depression. I mean, when I mean levels, there's levels where um, you know, you could be depressed for maybe a day or two, just something happened, you know, and then you get back to normalcy. But then there's different levels where if you continue to feel depressed, you get into that rabbit hole and you can't get out of that rabbit hole. It's very difficult. I mean, because you're spiraling down.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what happened with him, you know. And when he had mentioned he wanted to talk to me, and I was like, okay, you know, let's talk. You know, I picked him up and was driving back home, and he was like, you know, never mind, we'll talk about it later. And I said, no, babe. I said, you know, you can talk about it now. And I think it was like he was just so scared to discuss it, but at the same time, he knew I wasn't going to be freaking out. I mean, pull the car over, us talk. I would have held him or whatever, but it's society, it's people outside to make you feel like there's something wrong with you if you just if and you're weak if you decide to take your life. And I would say this, it takes a strong person to make an executive decision that I cannot be here on this earth again. It's not even being weak. That's a strong person. And people might not understand what I'm saying, but a weak person don't want to die. That, you know, regardless, they're gonna cry and wimp. A strong person who has reached their plateau where they are hopeless and they just can't, you know, it's like they're tired, they can't sleep or whatever, and they just want to have peace.
Mm-hmm.
And they make this type of decision. And I mean, even my pastor told me, she said he made an executive decision, you know, And I had to look at that because I was like, I didn't think of him weak, and I wasn't even mad, because a lot of people, when incidents like this happen, people get very angry with the person who took their lives. And I'm like, you know what? My son was looking for peace, and that was his way of having peace, to shut down the noise. And I would say this, that, depression, mental health has no discrimination with a person, economics, status quo, demographics. I mean, it's just like a disease. Disease doesn't target just one race.
Yeah.
It is across board. Cancer basically will attack anybody.
Right.
And that's what people have to look at when it comes to mental health. We're not looking at mental health like, oh, there's something wrong with that person. No, you know what? Because everybody in their lifetime has dealt with their own mental health, some type of level of dealing with their own mental health. Go ahead, babe.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, can you talk a little bit about the organization that you started? And you mentioned that your platform is for the schools, but I have seen that
Well,
you're branching that out. Yes.
yeah. So when I started it is because I was a backtrack. I was a board director for American Foundation Suicide Prevention. And I just felt like there wasn't a lot of work being done to help people of color. And I remember one time we had a retreat, and, it was our retreat to just, what they call it, when everybody's thinking, brainstorming and stuff. And I just said, you know what, here's my issue with the organization. I was like, when I pick up a brochure, there's no one who looks like me. When I look at your commercials, there's no one that looks like me. And for a organization to be national and also global, I would expect you to see a brochure where everybody could relate to whoever's on there. And that means of all colors. And so from there, I remember I had went to Miami, to digress a little bit, and I had got a call from a radio station to come in. And I remember the director for the chapter, I told the radio station, I said, let me advise them that I'm joining them on the segment. And I remember the director said, they're not going to know that you're Black. Really? In other words, he didn't want me to go because he felt like two people were sufficient enough to be on an urban radio station to inform people of color about mental health. And I said, it's not me who insists I be here. It's the radio station who insists I be here, because I am a person of color and people can relate to my story. And that made me just, take a step back. And I said, you know what? I got to do something for my people, even though overall my organization is to help people in general. I start, continue to do things for the young, the youth, but then I branched out to helping men. And I did, like, for 2 years prior to the pandemic, I did for the month of November, we did an event for men only, where men would come in and there was a therapist that could talk about your mental health. We also had an individual talk about finances, being an entrepreneur. But our focus was to make sure that men were okay, they were good inside and out. And so we did that for 2 years. It was great. I mean, when I'm telling you, the brothers were very happy to be in a place where they didn't have to, they can share amongst themselves and fellowship at the same time. I was just like, I can't just have my organization just be just for kids. It has to be for the people. But as I said, I tell people, my emphasis is I always put my people first, even though general mental health is basically for everybody.
Right.
And at the same time, I branched it out even further because my son was a volunteer at the Live House, and that's a homeless shelter, transition home for women with children. And they loved him. They have a picture of him in the office and everything. And I said, when I had to get myself together, I would spend my holidays as far as dedicating to that. And so with that, every year around Christmas time, starting end of November, we basically help the moms and the kids with their Christmas wish list. And so this year it was really different. I had my company that joined on board, and they had an Amazon wish list. So people sent gifts. I cooked dinner for the whole house.
Wow.
Right. um, Also, I had other friends who do nonprofit work. They came in and brought me diapers, brought me gift cards, brought me toys. So, like now, the house has not just for the kids, but they have house toys for the house. So
Mhm.
when the kids, you know, um, have some downtime, they can go to the little library area. And they got books, and so Alive is like my baby. I every year I'm like focus on that from Thanksgiving up to Christmas, and just make sure that the moms don't have to worry about the kids,
Mhm.
as well as the kids don't have a Christmas where they just feel like, you know, sometimes people don't understand when you don't have nothing, or you're in a destituted, or you're just your life. I mean, you're dealing with challenges you just can't deal with. And then you have a child that you wish could have a Christmas that they would not forget. And that's my focus, is to make sure, give them, like every year I do a gift basket for the mom. So I make sure they have from toiletries to even kitchen little stuff, and just little stuff for themselves. But then for the kids, I make sure every kid gets everything they want on their list. But it's like, just imagine when a child who now has lived in a home and now is in a shelter, and it's like, that's you don't want to spend your time in Christmas. You don't want to spend your time in a shelter in Christmas, but you
Right.
do. But let's make it memorable, so that say, you know what, it wasn't bad, because I people do care. and
Mhm.
and it's just it's I tell you, every year it just gives me, I mean, I get stressed out because I want it to be perfect, but it's such a good feeling to make sure that these kids, they're so excited at Christmas Eve because they know the next day is Christmas Day. And like this year, I mean, like I put my foot in it when cooking. I was like, God dang. But
And that has to be a great feeling, because I know there's a stigma that comes to, even if it's no fault of your own, that you come across whatever the bad hardship or the bad time
right,
is, and you find yourself reluctant or at the hands of someone else
right.
to help you. So I really, really do commend that. Would you end up
Mhm.
fixing?
I made a baked salmon, and I got it from the wharf. I had asparagus, and then I had risotto with mushrooms.
Mm.
And I was like, dang, I should have made some extra.
I know how we get with our food when we are
Right.
foodies.
My
I
my
definitely know how we are. So with this last year in the pandemic, and
hmm
everybody has been finding a way to, the word of 2020 was shift,
hmm
as to how they do business, because a lot of times you weren't able to do stuff right
right,
in
right.
large groups. How have you been able to still get your platform out to people?
I mean, social media has been my, which I'll just say this: social media, I mean, especially prior to and now, have been my tool as far as getting the word out. But it's like, I have to now make sure that I tell myself, hey, Lisa, you got to post something on social media, because I've gotten to a point, it's like, oh, they need to see a face see a face, Lisa, or, you got to post something. Because sometimes I might take a day or two off.
Mm-hmm.
And I need it sometimes, because it's just like I'm going like a choo-choo train. I'm like constantly, my mind like even runs now, because I'm thinking of stuff that I want to do, projects or stuff I'm trying to in the future to produce. And I'm just like, wow. So it's like, I also am a director for a women's wellness for women of color, and it's No More Martyrs. So it's like my day consists of, every day is by 8 o'clock, post something that is motivational and inspiring for women to read, or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, I gotta post on mine too, or something. And I just sometimes I just be like, okay, just post on No More Martyrs, and that's it. You ain't gotta look, you don't have to do nothing for yourself, because it's just like, okay, I'm like, I just need a moment. And so
Mm-hmm.
I for No More Martyrs, like weekends, I promote self-care on the Facebook community page. And I do it for myself, because I was like, even though we are promoting mental health for women of color, I also got to make sure that these women understand you can't keep going like the Every Ready Rabbit, constantly just
Yes.
going, going, going. And so that's why, the founder, she was like, I love like weekend. You constantly put that in their face on a post, safe self-care. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
provide self-care tips, or, just it shouldn't just be every time you just going on. Somebody got to see you doing this. It's like, and even for mine, people would know, okay, she's gonna post something self-care on her personal page. Because guess what? The only way I'm still here at this point is because Lisa had to learn, okay, you're doing all this, but sometimes it does burn you out. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it burn me out where it's in a bad thing, but because you're trying to do so much. And sometimes you got to say to yourself, you know what? You're going to have to put a hold. That can be done later. You need to rest, you know. And I love taking naps now. Or, I love working out,
Mm-hmm.
but I can sit and watch TV, watch a good movie, and I'll be like for hours. And I'm like, but that was so much fun, but it's so relaxing.
Right.
And I start to pace myself now, because I'm like, Lisa, everything wasn't done today, or you got this, and this done today.
Mhm.
There's tomorrow, and then there's day after tomorrow. You're not going to do everything in one day. And I had to teach myself that, because I was like, you have to slow down. You got to take a breath, a breather, and say, okay, let me just relax.
Right.
Let me rejuvenate myself.
Right. Sometimes, a lot of times, we wait till the weekend. But one of the things that I've been plugging for the last 6 months or so is
Mhm.
take time every day.
Right. Exactly.
Even if it's just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you're sipping on a
Right.
cup of tea, and it's your favorite cup of tea, or as you said, reading a book, taking a nap.
Yes.
Find that, because
So,
when we don't take that,
mhm.
oftentimes it then becomes too late when we get
Right.
self-care, because now we're doing it because something's wrong with our body.
Exactly. And like in this cup, I have cut sliced lemon, I have black seed oil, I have turmeric, I have honey, I have ginger,
Mm,
because we're dealing with the pandemic, but I love how I mix that up together, and it's delicious. And I would drink it all day. But I'm like, Lisa, and I love tea, I
mhm.
drink coffee every day, but I'm just like, you know what? Just mellow out, out. I have so many sticky pads, and on my phone, I have on this phone, I have an ink
Mhm.
pad. So when something hits me, I'll put it into my ink pad note, because I was like, Lisa, just, I know I can't have my brain stop sometimes, but it's like, let me put it on here. I'm good. all right, put it down. You got it down so you can reference back to it.
Mhm.
I was like, and just relax. And then I have my dogs and my boyfriend, his family. I'm just like, you know, they made me slow down even more just to enjoy being around them. So
Mhm. And I know as a writer, s- my brain is weird because
mhm.
it was like, when I went back to school, I had to do that transition from academic work to
Right.
what I love, fiction. And I was going somewhere one day and a thought hit me for a scene. So I'm grabbing, punching my phone to do the voice recorder and miss
Uh-huh.
my turn. Miss my turn. I was like, I can't do that no more. I had to tell my brain, you can't have these thoughts while I'm driving. You
Mhm.
have to wait till I get to where I'm going so I can jot this down. I
Right.
know one of your other passions that you've been slowly working on is
Mhm.
writing. How is that coming along?
So I've been writing for years, but when I lost my son, I stopped. And I mean, I have like so many books that's in storage, but and at the same time, I lost my stepping, my footing with writing, and it was like sometimes I would say, I need to write, I need to write that, I need to write, and I just could not get my footing to like just even hit the first couple of sentences.
Mhm.
And what started me back was Amy Buell, who was the founder of My Story Isn't Over Yet, and she had passed away before the book was published, but she was collecting stories from writers, inspiring writers from writers. And I kept saying, oh, I want to do that. But then, like I said, it was my footing was sort of off, and I kept saying, "Yeah, I might do that, or I'm gonna do that." I'm just teeling back and forth with it. And then when I looked at it, it says deadline ends. Da 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 da. When I'm telling you, I don't know what happened. I typed, and then I had to have a picture
Oh, okay.
taken. So I I remember I had got a tattoo of a butterfly that's on my ankle with a
Mhm.
semicolon as its body. And I said, I want to use that as for the backdrop of the story. And so I had my play brother, who's a photographer, take pictures of my ankle with Yvette Crocker has
Yeah.
these tennis shoes that have black butterflies on it,
Mhm.
which was perfect. And so I took it, and then maybe a few weeks or whatever, maybe a month go by, and then I got an email saying, "Oh, that your story will be published in her book." And I was like, I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Okay." So that happened. I got the book. I was sitting there, open the book and looking. I was like, "You did that, girl, and you did that within like a couple of days."
Mhm.
So that was like my little push button. And then
Yeah.
I kept saying, because everybody who knows me or know about me personally knows, most of my stories, my journey, what I've been through. And everybody keeps saying, girl, you need to write a book. Like, seriously, write a book. And I'm like, oh, because what I learned recently, and thank goodness to Kevin Powell, is because I don't want to get sued.
Mhm.
He's like, you can write without without placing that character's name in the book, so you don't
Right.
get sued. I was like, whew. I was like, I'm glad to know that, because I said it's not like it's dirt, but
Mhm.
it's the truth. Stuff that happened is
Exactly.
the truth. And
Exactly.
so I'm just like, okay. And recently, starting last year, when the pandemic happened, Kevin Powell started a workshop, and is it every Tuesday, or yeah, I think it was every Tuesday, which he's starting back up this month, um, where we spent 2 hours. Some were doing poems, some will read a little bit of this snippet, and then he also will educate us as far as the whole process from writing to even self-publishing to even getting it published, and so forth, and legal stuff. And that, I'm telling you, I think what inspired me the most was listening to people who basically started been drafting, and some who have created poems, haikus, and all that. And when I'm telling you, for 2 hours, I was like, now, Lisa never could keep still in class, but for 2 hours, I was like, God dang, I get all this. So when I'm telling you, I would have my glass of wine or tea, whatever, here, sitting here, and then be ready to get logged on to Zoom. And I would get so excited to see people and then listen to people. And I was like, wow, it's like, okay, I can do this. And so before Kevin had took because Kevin, he's a person who he took not a hiatus, but he took a break. He took a break, in which he said he does it every year. He takes a break in December. So basically it's almost like a month, mid-December to mid of January. And so he took a break, and you need a moment to take care of yourself. And so before then, he said, I want us to have a book, because some of our conversation dialogue was about racism and stuff, and just whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, I got a few stories, and which this is my piece that's in the book that's coming out in probably like next week. It'll be out. Was dealing with racism. One of my racism scenarios when I was young, back in Portsmouth, Virginia. And the funny thing is, what triggered me is during the pandemic, No More Martyrs, we held a virtual graduation for women of color. We had like 40 some women, and our Zoom call got hacked. And I was speaking to the graduates, and you just heard all this, vulgar, just rude, just, it triggered me. And I had to think quickly, because I was looking at these women's faces, and I was like, how dare you do this to women?
Right.
How dare you? And we reset, got the Zoom call back on and everything, but it triggered me to think about what it made me say, Lisa, remember how you felt when you dealt with racism back at home? And it was like, and I told him, I said, we're going to be resilient. We're not going to let this stop us. I was like, because y'all, some of these women had been through, had cancer, chemotherapy, so much was going on. And like, to finish school during a pandemic, I was just like, no, we ain't gonna let this take us down. No, ma'am, no. And so I put that snippet, because I also was going through every year when it comes around Memorial Weekend, I had to take a little time, because that's my son's anniversary when he passed. And so I had told the founder, I said, I'll let you know about, join y'all on this call. And I did, because I was like, you know what? I said, these ladies need encouragement. So it was like I was going through so many emotions, and I put it in that journal entry for his book, because it made what was happening then and what I could remember what happened back then. It was like a heat was coming off of my body. I could feel the heat just rising. And I was just like, my mom, she was an activist. My parents were active voters. And I was like, from that, I detailed as far as what happened November 4th. So it was like, I was like, Lisa, you wrote this journal, girl. And one of the editors, she was like, I want more. When she was reading it, she was like, I want more I want to read more of this from you. And I was like, okay. I was like, I did it.
Yeah, it is such a,
Wait
because
a minute. I'm
for
talking to my dog.
it's a chocolate.
No,
Yeah,
Phoenix.
okay.
Mhm.
And it's amazing because I sat on this for so long. People have
Mhm.
said to me, you have such an optimistic spirit. You
Right.
should do this platform. And I was like, and you know me, now this is not my wheelhouse. I'm just going to do one-on-one. And then I found that once I got out of my way,
Mhm.
and God said, but this is your platform.
Mhm.
This really is your platform. Even though you love to write fiction, you still have an opportunity to help other people tell their stories.
Mhm.
And this is what
Mhm.
I love about Journeys with Jones Harwell is because
Mhm.
people can get on here and, the segment is called Unapologetic. And
Right.
it's for that reason. You don't owe anyone the explanation,
Right.
but is your opinions, is how you feel, but there's somebody out there, always out there, that needs to hear
Mhm.
the story.
Right.
And whether it's in a written format or we're sitting here chatting one-on-one, having a conversation,
Mhm.
it's still reaching that one person.
Mhm.
And I really, really appreciate you. I thank you so much for taking the time. We're going to wrap up here, but if you could, and I'm going to leave it in the comments for people
Mhm.
to hear to how to
Mhm.
reach out to you. If you need volunteers for any of your activities,
Mhm.
where they can get some information if they are in crisis, and anything else you would like to share.
So I'm gonna give my email account, which
Okay.
is Phoenix R, and it's Phoenix, like the city Phoenix R LLC4 @gmail.com.
Let me spell right.
EHOENIX
XR.
R
Mm-hmm.
LLC 4. That's the letter 4,
Uh-huh.
the number 4 at
Uh-huh.
gmail.com.
I know what you meant.
Mhm.
Virgo sisters, I know exactly
Mhm.
what you meant. Okay. Com.
And they can reach me. And even if I'm on Facebook, it's and I have 2 Facebook accounts. So one right now is locked, but the Lisa T. Daughtry, you can
Okay.
find me, or you can find me on Instagram at @1_Phoenix Rising.
Okay. And I'm finding that I have carpal tunnel now in both hands. So it's like in the evening, I have to literally put my
Right.
hands like this to sleep because if I do this, they lock up and I'm screaming.
Oh,
I am literally screaming. And I know you just finished the one program for the Christmas holidays for Alive. Is
hmm,
there any way that people during the year can
yeah,
donate
yeah,
or?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If they need information, they can contact me because they do um, collect throughout the year. But it's like, and people understand that when organizations do a lot of campaigning as far as needing help, like coat drives or and so forth, is because the need for just things that are necessary for people to have the supply is
Right.
very low. And like last year when I toured the warehouse, they only had certain amount of food to feed people, and they were like they were low on it. So it was like I was like went back out and was like, hey guys, listen, they need help as far as getting some food there because they had to feed people. They just don't feed people on certain days. They feed people every day, Monday, Sunday through Saturday. And that's any shelter. I mean,
Right.
they need people to help them. And I mean, I commend those people who go out to the parks and prepare the food. I did that with my family 1 year for Christmas. We didn't celebrate Christmas inside the house. Our Christmas was spent feeding the needy and at the park. So understand it's a everyday job for those people. So even when you decide to contribute, okay, so, make some type of
Right.
donation, or if you want to volunteer, understand that it's just not, like I tell them, just call me. It's something you need. I can probably get somebody, one of my friends who can get that for you. But it's like, it's a dire need. I mean, especially now we have people who, the food banks need help.
Help. They do. They do. They do. They do. Any last words of advice or encouragement you'd like to leave our audience with this evening?
I think like today I had post, there's nothing wrong with you going to therapy. And that's even for little minute things to even something that's big. And understand, try to have this open dialogue with your family at home, at the home front. Make it that your family members are comfortable to talk about it. Let's not be we can't judge. Let's not judge people. Let's make it comfortable that your children, your husband, your wife, your brothers, sisters, aunt, uncles, grandma, whoever, because like I said, it depression strikes anybody. It has no preference. And so I want people to have open dialogue and feel comfortable where you're not judging a person. You'll say, you know what, this person's really not having a good day, or I noticed this person has been consistent with a few things. I noticed it's a little off. They're not the same anymore. Don't take it like, oh, they'll be all right. Some people are going through something and they're afraid to talk about it, is because they don't want to be judged. They don't want some people to talk behind their backs or make fun of them. And we shouldn't be doing that, especially now around this time. People are suffering because of this pandemic. People are dealing with hardship, some either financially, physically, or mentally. But we all got to be we all got to help each other.
Right.
Really.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Thank you, my sister. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Lisa.
You are so welcome. This concludes this broadcast of Journeys with Jones Harwell. Your host, Jones Harwell, and our guest this evening, the beautiful, fantastic Lisa Daughtrey. I will be back again on Saturday with Dr. Tashika Green, and we're going to be talking about education and virtuous women.
And tell my boyfriend I said, hey.
Hey. All right. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night, babe.